As a disclaimer, you're going to disagree with some of my takes in this video. You're probably even going to get upset with some of my takes in this video. And that's okay because these are my opinions and my judgments. Everything here is based off of my taste, and if you disagree, go make your own video. I'm Jack Paul, the creator of Genesis, which is a manga about mercenaries crossing a frontier infested with giant bugs. Adult animation is something that has inspired me heavily, so I thought it would be fun to kind of switch it up today, do something a little bit different, a little bit more casual, and talk about some of the greatest adult animations of the 21st century. Now, the criteria that I'm using to base these off of are premise and execution. Even my own personal favorite comfort shows are going to be a little lower on the list simply because the premise is not strong or they're not executed as strongly as they could be. First of all, we're not doing any anime. I would love to maybe do that in another video. So without further ado, let's get started. The first one up is going to be The Simpsons. I was a bit hesitant about putting The Simpsons on this list because it's simply just kind of older than the other ones, and I didn't want it to be unfairly judged because of that. We start off here, especially before we get into some of the other ones, because the show is obviously iconic. It's obviously the mold in which a lot of these adult cartoons are based on, but the longer it goes on, the more it kind of outstays its welcome. And that isn't to say that there aren't great moments still to this day, but I really don't know how this fits into the media landscape, especially with other properties on this list that we'll get on to talk about. This is pretty much a legacy property that just keeps going for the sake of continuing to keep going. I can't in good judgment put this above a C. The next on our list is going to be Family Guy. I actually think the show is genius. Right from the opening song, it signals that most TV shows are violent and sexual. Family Guy becomes sort of like a metaphor for the moral feel-good stories, and it parodies the 70s and 80s sitcoms that try to teach us good values, but every character is lustful, violent, and dumb. Early episodes play into this quite perfectly, this genius premise, but the longer it goes on and the context and the culture has shifted around this show, the more it too has also sort of outstayed its welcome. With streaming and, things have becoming so much different, it does kind of find its rare moments where it stands out here and again. But without a guiding thread, I can't put this above a low C. American Dad also parodies the American life just like Family Guy, but this is really more of a commentary on shows like Family Guy and The Simpsons, more of a parody on that. It doesn't really have a unique premise. The comedy is slightly sharper at times, but again, can't put this higher than a C. The Cleveland Show is just bad, unoriginal, derivative, portrays its own perspective. Cleveland doesn't even get the N-word pass. This is going to be my first F. Speaking of F, Futurama. What a simple yet genius concept to take that Simpsons format and bring it into the future. Obvious that the future world is just a critique of our modern life. However, it being set in the future just gives us so many awesome opportunities for sci-fi hijinks and, just fun stuff. This show is probably one of the reasons why I can't rank The Simpsons higher, is because it just fits so much better into the 21st century landscape than The Simpsons does. And it's absolutely filled with meme material, iconic and irreverent characters. This is going to be our first S tier. So moving on, we've got King of the Hill, which, by the way, I'm loving the reboot for this, just like I also love the reboot of Futurama. This show is an American slice of life. Definitely a comfort show. Definitely has its funny moments, but there really isn't anything to write home about here. And there's nothing in its premise, there's nothing in its animation or how it's executed that I could say can make it rank any higher than above like a C. Oh, you guys are going to hate me for this one. So Bob's Burgers, definitely a great comfort show as well. Doesn't really have a bold premise. The comedy is just sort of meh to me, and it doesn't really have anything that can keep me to it. I've tried to get into the show several times and it just cannot keep me hooked, man. This show just did not really have as much of an impact on me, and this is really kind of one of the shows that, at least in my own writing, I try to stay away from making a show like this. That's not to say this isn't highly successful and that this formula doesn't work, but I gotta put it in the D tier, guys. I'm sorry. Next up, we've got Rick and Morty is responsible for the modern renaissance of adult animation. In many ways, it tackles what Family Guy is failing to do in modern times. The concept of exploring the multiverse is a great metaphor for having access to the internet and all the information that we do. I think Rick and Morty is even responsible for the idea of the multiverse being integrated into the mainstream, such as with the Marvel multiverse and films such as Everything Everywhere All at Once. It definitely has some stupid moments, but When Rick and Morty gets in its bag, there really isn't another show that can kind of get the same feelings or concepts quite like Rick and Morty. High A. Yeah, it's probably going to be... I'm going to put it in high A, but it might pop up as an S later in the video. I don't know. I might change my mind. Big mouth. I absolutely hate this show. It's gross, it's unremarkable, and then it's gross all over again. I really don't want to say too much more about this because I don't like talking about this show. F. Aqua Teen Hunger Force. Despite its low budget, despite its bad animation, and its utter stupidity at times, this is one of the greatest Adult Swim shows that has ever aired. And only in a dumbass show like this can you get main characters that are a milkshake, a french fry, and a wad of meat. This show probably only could have been made on Adult Swim. If it wasn't for this show, the network probably wouldn't have been as successful as it is, and it wouldn't have gone on to do bigger and better things such as Rick and Morty. You know what? I think it's great. I give it a low B. So the next Adult Swim show, and I'm just going to preface this with saying there probably isn't going to be a show ranked higher than this one. The premise is absolutely brilliant. It's about a black family that moves to a predominantly white suburb, with each member representing a different aspect of being black in modern America. It's executed well on all fronts. Writing is great, the comedy is great, the action is good, the animation is great. This show holds up even 20 years later, and the closest thing we've gotten to it is something like Atlanta season 3. Of course, I'm talking about the Boondocks. This is high S. This is S of S of S. S plus tier if there was one. I don't think there's really been anything that has just raised the bar quite in the way that the Boondocks has. Again, high S tier. So the next show is Mike Tyson's Mysteries. This is one of my personal favorite shows. I hate that it got cut when it did, but the show is absolutely hilarious. If we're talking about premise, it's not a very complex premise, but for the premise that they are tackling and for the style that they're tackling, they're doing it quite well. It uses that classic Hanna-Barbera style. It always just devolves into some utter lunacy. This one just is so funny, and RIP to the late great Norm Macdonald. This one gets this is a solid A. BoJack Horseman. This is all I'm going to say about that.
Oh, it's a funny show, but the way they dive into depression, and especially after what he did to her daughter, I was like, man, can I even feel bad for this horse anymore?
So yeah, solid A tier. So the next show on the list is going to be Disenchantment. It's pretty much just medieval Futurama. Doesn't really have anything in here to make me stand out. I got to give it a low D. Next on the list is going to be Paradise PD. I've seen the entire show. Can't remember a single detail about it. Just absolutely unremarkable all around. F. And I think this show is also kind of indicative of how the bar for Netflix and its adult animation sort of all over the place. On the other hand, though, we do get shows like The Midnight Gospel. Great during the pandemic, absolute staple, gives me super jail Adult Swim vibes, and it's excellent setup for a podcast, but because it's a podcast, it kind of doesn't limit the storytelling aspects of it. I give this one a solid B as well. So next on the list is going to be The Amazing Digital Circus. I haven't seen that one. I know a lot of people really enjoy that, but I'm going to put this in my no opinion list. I don't think I'm going to come back to that one. I just don't think that one's for me, but if it is really good, leave me a reason why I should maybe watch it in the comments. All right, next on the list we have Rick and Morty's off-brand cousin. It's Solar Opposites, which is just totally unremarkable to me. I'm going to go with a D. An Amazon original, which is Invincible has some really great moments, but it doesn't really do anything better than some of the greats. The drama is good, but not anything that's so out there that it blows my mind, especially if you grew up watching shows like Justice League Unlimited, just other sort of like superhero cartoons. This is another solid B choice for me. Solid B. Common Side Effects, I watched this entire first season last night in preparation for this video. The off style was kind of off-putting to me at first, and I don't know if it's too soon to say this, but this is also going to be an S tier show for me. The premise is absolutely brilliant. This show is just genius, man. I don't want to say too much, but this is one of Adult Swim's greatest shows ever. This is S tier, hands down. Next show is going to be The Shivering Truth. What is this show even? It's really kind of a crazy show, and it doesn't really do anything spectacular. It's kind of like a dumb vibe. It's a claymation anthology, which I told you I do love the anthologies, and it's absolutely hilarious and absurd. That's one of my personal favorites, but I can't justify giving it more than a D. Next on the list is going to be Love, Death, and Robots, another anthology, but this one has a little bit higher highs to balance out its lows, and I love that it switches art styles. I'm not a big fan of CGI, but again, it kind of does it tastefully from time to time. This one's a solid B. This is probably going to be a little out there for some of you guys, but I think this is actually one of the better DC projects that they put out in recent times. It's going to be Harley Quinn. It doesn't take itself too seriously. It uses the whole DC verse to its advantage, which is also kind of its biggest weaknesses because it's a little too much at times and a little too campy at times, but it's definitely a fun show, and I like the fact that the writers can dig into different aspects of the characters and how kind of absurd this whole thing is. This is a solid B for me. This next show is bad, and it's not bad because it tried to change a classic formula. This show is bad simply because it's uninteresting. The second season came out and I couldn't remember a single detail from the first season because I simply just don't care about any of the characters and I don't care what they have going on. That show, of course, is Velma, and this is a solid F. Next show on the list is going to be Adventure Time, specifically Distant Lands. Adventure Time is a little more kid-friendly, but it definitely taps into mature themes, and I think the show definitely grows up with its audience. So I figured I'd sneak it onto this list. It definitely gives that D&D, Eldritch God, occult, fun adventure, obviously, no pun intended. This is a solid A. With that being said, I did not put regular show on this list simply because Close Enough exists. This show is also a nice cozy show as well. I like how it has the regular show humor. I wish honestly we had just gotten a regular show that evolved with its audience in the same way that Adventure Time did. And again, this is still one of my favorite shows, comfort-wise, something a little cozy to throw on in the background, but just not quite the same standard, so I gotta give it a C. So maybe I'm just biased towards sci-fi, but this next show I think has an absolutely excellent premise, and that's Infinity Train. The idea that the train is an opportunity for characters to explore their trauma and creates these juicy, interesting character like motivations and this fun world that we haven't really seen anywhere else before, even in like film. And this is actually, I think, one of the best shows to not really get any like buzz. I mean, obviously the people online that talk about cartoons and stuff for a living are aware of this show, well, but this is a solid S tier show. So the last show on this list is going to be Scavenger's Reign. I haven't seen this one either, but I feel like this is going to be another great show. I hear lots of great things about it, so I'm going to put this in the no opinion category, and I'm going to come back to it later. Again, I want to hear about any shows that I might have missed or any shows that you guys want to put me on to. Let me know in the comments down below, and maybe we'll try something like this again. Peace.